That crack, the one that split the air at my sister's reception, was the last thing he ever heard as a powerful man. It echoed for just a second, then the scream started. But in that moment of silence, I already knew. My whole life I'd been building something they couldn't ignore, and now, because of one stranger's phone, 5 million people were about to watch me finish it. My name is Alara Vance, and I've spent my entire existence in someone else's spotlight. That night, the Grand Vista Ballroom was a symphony of polished lies. 1,000 imported orchids drowned out the real air. Crystal constellations hung from the ceiling, each worth more than my first car. And at the centre of this perfect, expensive universe was my sister, Celeste. She wasn't just wearing her wedding dress, she was conducting gravity with it, pulling every gaze, every whispered compliment into her orbit. I was stationed by the kitchen doors, my back against cool marble. A strategic retreat point. I held sparkling water, the bubbles long dead. I was the practical one, the fixer. The silent, functional shadow that made her brilliance possible. It was a role written for me before I could talk. In my family, being seen was the only currency, and I was bankrupt. Then, the sound of a knife tapping crystal. Ting, ting, ting. My father, Robert Vance, commanded the room without raising his voice. The quartet died mid-note. A hush, thick and expectant, fell over the 300 guests. He stood there, the picture of patriarchal pride in his custom tuxedo. But I wasn't looking at his smile. I was smelling the storm. The expensive scotch on his breath was a familiar warning signal, the scent preceding broken things and swallowed words. To my radiant daughter, he boomed, voice dripping with curated emotion. And to my new son, Leo. On this day, we give you a foundation for your future. He paused, a master of suspense. The keys to the cliffside villa on Mariner's View. The air didn't just leave my lungs, it evacuated my body. The villa on Mariner's View. My villa. The shell of a house I'd discovered half swallowed by the coastal scrub. The place where I'd spent 3 years of sunrises and bloodied knuckles, breathing life back into its salt-rotted bones. Every restored floorboard was a callus, every replaced beam, a sleepless night. The room erupted, a tidal wave of applause and gasps. How unbelievably generous, a woman sighed. A distant cousin caught my eye and mimed wiping a tear. Alara, that's so huge of you, they all assumed. They saw my quiet presence and painted it as complicit generosity. They thought I was finally playing my part in the family narrative, the supportive sibling, gifting her masterpiece. A cold, clear clarity washed over me, freezing the panic. This was the trap, laid in public, with 300 witnesses as the jaws. Don't make a scene, my mother had texted. That was their weapon, my own conditioning. I set my glass down. The click was definitive. Then I walked. My heels were a metronome on the stone. Click, click, click. The applause stuttered, then died, replaced by a confused rustle. The crowd parted, not for a bride, but for a truth walking into the light. I stopped before the sweetheart table. My father's smile was plastered on, but his eyes were winter. Alara, he said, the microphone picking up the warning in his tone. Join us. Celebrate your sister. That isn't true, I said. My voice didn't shake. It cut. The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. His face changed. The charming mask didn't slip, it vaporized. A red flush crawled from his collar to his hairline. The scotch in his system ignited. What did you say to me? I said, that's a lie. I pitched my voice to Kiri. For the guests in the back, I never agreed to that. You are embarrassing this family, he spat, taking a step forward. It's my home, I stated, rooted to the spot. I bought the ruin, I rebuilt it, it is mine. Don't you dare, he growled, the sound almost subsonic. Don't you dare ruin her day. You are giving away a house that isn't yours to give. He moved. It wasn't a slap, it was an eradication. His hand shot out, fingers like iron clamps on my upper arm. You will be silent. And he shoved. It was a full-body execution of rage. My feet left the ground. There was a weightless moment. Then the world dissolved into a single sickening sensation. Crack. It wasn't a thud. It was a sharp, wet, deeply personal sound. The sound of my skull meeting immovable marble. My glass, forgotten in my hand, exploded on the floor. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but a high-pitched ring in my ears. Then, chaos. A chorus of screams. Oh my God! Call an ambulance! I slid down the wall but caught myself. palm splayed on the cold stone. A sting, then a shocking warmth flooded the back of my head. My fingers came away dark and slick in the chandelier light, blood. Through the ringing, I heard someone yell for 911, but my vision locked onto two things. First, Celeste. She was frozen, a hand over her mouth, but her eyes, they weren't on me. They were frantically scanning the crowd, the raised phones. She was watching her perfect narrative shatter in real time. Second, a young man by the bar. Amidst the panic, he stood perfectly still. His phone was held steady, aimed right at us, and on its screen a small, persistent red dot glowed. He wasn't just recording, he was broadcasting. The fluorescent lights of the emergency room were a brutal come-down. The doctor's voice was calm. You've got a laceration down to the bone, 8 stitches, and a concussion. Someone hit you very hard. My father, I said, my voice strange to my own ears. He shoved me into a wall. The doctor just nodded, his eyes holding a weary understanding. The police are outside. Alone in the curtained cubicle, my phone erupted. Not a call. A seizure of vibrations, notifications piling over each other. A nurse popped her head in, her expression shifting from routine to recognition. It's you. You're all over my feed. She held up her phone. It was the video. The young man's live stream. There was my father's toast, my walk, the argument, the shove, the crack, the blood. The view counter was a number that didn't make sense. 5 million. Overnight. The officer who took my statement was direct. We have the venue's HD security footage. We have dozens of phone angles. Do you wish to press charges? I thought of the cliffside villa, of the smell of sawdust and sea salt. I thought of the word he'd always used to beat me back into line. Selfish. Yes, I said. The word felt like a cornerstone settling into place. Absolutely. To understand why that yes took 30 years, you have to understand the Vance family economy. We traded in appearance. Tangible work had no value. Only visibility mattered. Celeste was the sun. I was a useful asteroid in her orbit. When I won a prestigious architectural design award in college, I brought the trophy home. My father glanced at it over dinner. Neat, he said, and turned to Celeste. How was your dance rehearsal, sweetheart? 2 weeks later, Celeste got a non-speaking role in a community play. My parents opened vintage champagne. My mother wept with joy. She just shines, she kept saying. I watched my trophy gather dust on a shelf behind Celeste's old participation ribbons. That was the lesson, learned not in words but in the vacuum of silence around my achievements. My work was invisible. Her presence was the accomplishment, so I left. I got a studio above a hardware store. I worked 2 jobs, saved every cent. My dream wasn't a penthouse. It was a corpse of a house on a cliff, condemned and forgotten. But I saw its skeleton, good bones, a heart of solid stone waiting to beat again. My mother's calls were velvet guilt. Why work so hard, darling? Family comes first. But family first was a cage with a velvet interior. It meant conform, be quiet, disappear. While Celeste travelled to find herself, I found myself in building codes and blistered hands. My world smelled of pine resin and welding flux. I learned to live without their validation. When you're raised in a hall of mirrors, you have to learn to build your own walls just to find what's real. The villa was my rebellion. The first winter I slept in the only dry corner, waking to ice in my water glass. I sistered new joist to old, repointed the foundation stone by stone. I salvaged a shattered stained glass window from a demolition site and spent months piecing it back together. When the sun hit it, it didn't just make light, it made colour so vivid it felt alive. When I finally invited them over, my father walked through the restored halls, trailing his fingers over the custom joinery. Why? He asked. Would you waste your life on this wreck? Celeste wrinkled her nose. It's so rustic. Aren't you going to drywall it? I stopped inviting them. The villa became my fortress. It was the one truth I had built in a life of performances. But as it took shape, their sense of ownership grew like ivy. It started as a suggestion at a family dinner. Celeste and Leo will need a proper home, my father said, scotch already on his breath. You've got all that space. The pressure became a constant quiet hum. Then a notification from my doorbell cam. There was Celeste and Leo on my porch holding paint swatches against my front door, a cheerful yellow to replace my deep coastal blue. I called her. Get off my property. Oh, don't be dramatic, she laughed. We're just dreaming. I changed the locks that night. The final text from my mother came 2 days before the wedding. Whatever you're feeling, don't make a scene on her big day. Family first. It wasn't a plea. It was a blueprint. They would announce their gift publicly, using the weight of 300 witnesses to crush my no before I could say it. They were counting on my lifetime of silence. They mistook my silence for surrender. From the liquor cabinet, the single malt scotch, the 6 bottles of Cabernet Sauvignon. From the fridge, the heritage bacon, the triple creme brie, the jumbo shrimp. I left his instant coffee, his cheap vodka, his block of generic cheddar. I was resetting the house to its default settings. The Robert Vance basic package. In the dining room, I stripped the partially set table, my grandmother's linens, my silver chargers. I carried it all to a storage closet, placed it inside, and clicked a new padlock I'd bought on the latch. Assets frozen. Back in the kitchen, I called and cancelled the cleaning service, removing my card from the account. Then on my banking app, I found the family emergency credit card he carried. I didn't cancel it. I lowered its spending limit to $100, enough for pizza, not enough for a caterer. Finally, I placed his spare key on the island. On top, a note. I am not cooking, I am not cleaning, I am not funding. Have the Christmas you've earned. I took my heavy duffel, exited into the dawn, and drove away. As I merged onto the highway, I waited for the guilt. It didn't come. Instead, a profound lightness, as if I'd shrugged off a weighted coat I didn't know I was wearing. I turned my phone on miles later. The bombardment began. Missed calls, texts. 6:18 a.m. Where are you? The coffee maker is empty. 6:45 a.m. This isn't funny. 7:20 a.m. I've opened the refrigerator. Where is the food? 7:50 a.m. The cleaning service isn't answering. The house is a disaster. What am I supposed to do? I scanned for concern. Not a single, "Are you okay?" Just a ledger of his inconveniences. The profound sadness was a dull ache. He wasn't worried about his daughter. He was worried about his event manager. I pulled into the Seacliff Inn, a worn but clean hotel 3 hours north. I checked into a beige, beautiful room where no expectations lived. As I sat on the bed, my cousin Derek texted, "Heads up. Flight cancelled, driving in. We'll be at your dad's tonight." Panic flared. White hot. The rescue reflex screamed. I can still fix it. I stood, keys in hand, halfway to the door, and stopped. I made my fingers uncurl. The keys clattered to the dresser. No. Let them arrive. Let them see it. I walked out to the pier, let the brutal lake wind push against me. The resistance felt like truth. My phone rang. An unknown local number. I answered. Eleanor Vance. The voice was crisp, authoritative. Marla Carter, Robert's sister-in-law, the family's de facto judge, the woman whose approval he coveted above all. "I'm standing in your father's kitchen," she stated, "and I have a question." The lobby fireplace crackled. "I'm listening, Marla." "Your father is narrating a compelling story. He says you're having a breakdown, that you became overwhelmed by simple requests and abandoned him. He's casting himself as the bewildered victim of your instability." "He's lying," I said, my voice steady. "I suspected. But to stop this, I need facts. He says he provides, you organise. Who pays for the standing rib roast, Eleanor? Who pays for the wine?" I looked out at the snow. The truth was a stone I'd carried for years. It was time to drop it. "I do, Marla. I pay for everything. The food, the wine, the cleaning, the linens. He provides the address. I have 5 years of bank statements. He knows." A long-waited silence. "So we've been applauding the waiter for a meal the chef bought," she said, her voice turning to frost. "Stay at your hotel. Order room service. Do not come here. Do not save him. If you save him now, you save him forever. Let him fall. It's the only way he learns gravity exists." I sat, suspended. Minutes ticked by. A text from Derek. "Marla just walked in. Asked Dad in front of everyone who exactly pays for the food every year, because it clearly isn't him. Room is dead silent. He's bright red. Dude, he is cooked." I exhaled a decade of dust. The truth was out. A public fact. I ordered a burger and a glass of house Cabernet to my room. I ate it alone, in peace, paying my own tab. It was the most luxurious meal of my life. Back at Hollow Manor, through text and a shell-shocked call from Aunt Clara later, I pieced together the fallout. Marla, the HR director, conducted a forensic audit in the living room. When Robert tried his "she enjoys it" defense, Marla dismantled it. Hosting is labor. Generosity is not an obligation you assign. Aunt Clara, crumbling, admitted she'd seen me at checkout years ago, but looked away. The illusion shattered. They ordered pizza. Derek sent a photo. The majestic table buried under grease-stained boxes, people actually laughing. The caption, "Honestly, best Christmas Eve in years." I returned to Hollow Manor after New Year's. He answered the door in sweats, deflated. We sat at the kitchen table. "Marla enjoyed her inquisition," he muttered. "She asked a question you couldn't answer," I said. I laid out new terms. No guest list without consent, no funding from me, no labour from me, an end to the perfect pretense. He looked at the empty, honest refrigerator. "What if I can't do it?" he whispered, truly vulnerable. "I don't know how. Your mother did. Then you did." "Then let it be simple," I said. "Or let it be a disaster, but it won't be my disaster." We ordered Thai delivery. I didn't cook. He paid for his half. We ate amidst the lingering mess, watching a game. It was the most honest meal we'd ever shared. 11 months later, December 25th, a smaller group, a potluck table. And in the kitchen, Robert Vance, apron on, squinting at a recipe for au gratin potatoes. "What does fold in the cheese mean?" he grumbled. I sat on a stool in a velvet dress, holding wine I'd brought. He served his slightly burnt, slightly runny creation. "It might be terrible," he announced. Marla took a bite. "It's crunchy." Everyone laughed, warm and forgiving. He laughed too, sitting in the mess, looking more like a father than a patriarch ever could. He caught my eye across the table, raised his glass. "Merry Christmas, Ellie," he mouthed. "Merry Christmas, Dad," I said back. I didn't have to make him look good anymore. He was finally learning to stand on his own. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like the family's designated fixer, I hope this resonated with you. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you in Toronto, Tokyo, or Cape Town? Tell me in the comments below. If this story meant something to you, please like this video and subscribe to Night of Revenge for more journeys like this. Your support helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Until next time, remember, your peace is not a price to be paid for someone else's holiday.